The sun had only just begun to rise over the wide ranch fields when Riley stepped out of his cabin. The air was cool, the kind of morning that made a person breathe slower, wanting to take it all in. Dew covered the grass, sparkling like tiny crystals under the soft orange light. Riley lived for mornings like this. They were calm, peaceful, and full of promise. He grabbed his hat, pulled on his work gloves, and started walking toward the barn, already thinking about the chores waiting for him. He had no idea that within an hour, this peaceful morning would turn into one he would never forget. Riley had been a rancher his whole life. He knew every hill, every path, every old fence post on the land. He also knew that sometimes things happened out here, unexpected things, that required steady hands and a clear mind. But the day began so quietly that he didn't think much about danger or surprises. Birds were waking up, cows were grazing far in the distance, and the world felt gentle. He reached the barn, opened the doors, and let the smell of hay and old wood fill the air. His horses nickered softly, recognizing him right away. Riley smiled, stretched his shoulders, and began to saddle his favorite horse, Dusty. The plan was simple. Ride out to check the north pasture gate, then loop around to make sure the water troughs were filling correctly. Nothing unusual, but just as he tightened Dusty's saddle strap, a sound cut through the quiet morning, a sound that didn't belong. It wasn't an animal call. It wasn't the wind. It was sharper, strained. A cry, a human cry. Riley froze. The sound came again, faint but unmistakable. Someone was shouting for help. He didn't waste a second. He swung himself into the saddle and kicked Dusty into a steady gallop toward the direction of the voice. His heart began to pound, but his mind stayed focused. Out here, you didn't ignore a call like that. People sometimes wandered too far or underestimated the land. Even visitors who thought they knew what they were doing could get in trouble quickly. As he rode, he listened hard, trying to locate exactly where the sound had come from. The hills bounced the echo around, making it tricky. He slowed Dusty and cupped a hand behind his ear. There it was again, a strained, desperate call. "I'm here," Riley shouted back. No answer came. That told him the person was either weak or hurt badly. He scanned the landscape, eyes sharp. The voice had come from the far pasture, near a rocky drop-off that led down to a narrow trail. Tourists sometimes wandered there because it looked scenic, but the ground could be unstable. He urged Dusty forward again, feeling a new weight settle in his chest, a mix of worry and determination. As he reached the edge of the pasture, he slowed down and looked around carefully. Then he saw her. Someone was lying on the ground at the bottom of a slight slope. A woman. She was on her side, one leg bent awkwardly, and she was trying to sit up but couldn't. Her camera bag lay a few feet away, half open, with lenses scattered in the grass. Riley guided Dusty down the slope carefully and jumped off before the horse even came to a full stop. He rushed toward the woman. "Hey," he called gently, dropping to one knee beside her. "Can you hear me?" She lifted her head weakly and nodded. Her dark hair had come loose from its tie, and dust clung to her jacket. Her face showed pain clear, sharp pain, but she was awake. I'm okay," she said, but her voice shook. I can't close my legs." Her words hit him like a cold wave. People didn't say something like that unless they were scared or truly unable to move. Riley kept his voice calm, steady. "All right. Don't try to move. I'm going to help you. What's your name?" "Oh, Lena," she whispered. "Lena, I'm Riley. You're safe now. I just need to figure out what happened." "All right?" She nodded again, breathing unevenly. Riley took a slow, controlling breath. He had seen injuries before, sprains, bruises, even a few broken bones, but he always approached carefully. The wrong move could make things worse. He gently touched her shoulder. "Did you fall?" he asked. "Yes," she answered, eyes closing for a moment, as if remembering the moment. "I was trying to get a picture of the ridge. The ground just slipped under me. I rolled. I don't know how far. I tried to stand, but my legs..." She swallowed. her voice breaking. "I can't close them. They won't move right." Riley nodded slowly. His instincts told him something serious might be happening. But he did not want to alarm her. Instead, he focused on making her feel steady and heard. "You're doing great," he said softly. "Just breathe. I'm here with you." Lena looked at him with tired, frightened eyes. She seemed embarrassed by her situation, but also desperate for help. Riley could see her trying to be strong even though she was hurting. "Is there pain anywhere else?" he asked. "My hip. Everything feels tight and wrong," she whispered. "I can't pull my legs together. It's like they're stuck." Riley had a strong feeling about what might be happening, but he didn't show the concern on his face. Ranchers learned long ago to keep calm even when the situation wasn't good. "All right," he told her. "I'm going to take a closer look, but I'll move slowly. If anything hurts more when I touch or adjust you, you tell me right away." "Okay," she breathed. He began examining her gently, checking her legs for swelling and making sure her spine seemed stable. Lena flinched when he touched her hip, and Riley immediately paused. "It's all right," he said again. "I won't rush." He noticed something concerning. Her legs weren't aligned the way they should be. One seemed slightly lower than the other. The muscles around her hip were tense, almost frozen, as if protecting something. Lena watched his face carefully. "Is it bad?" she asked quietly. Riley didn't lie, but he didn't scare her either. "Something isn't sitting right," he admitted. "But the good news is that you're awake. You're talking, and I'm going to get you out of here. You're not alone in this." Her eyes softened, and a tiny bit of the fear eased from her expression. "How far away is help?" she asked. "Not too far," Riley said. "I'll call for assistance. We'll get you to a doctor, and they'll take care of the rest." Lena blinked, trying to keep her composure. She looked like someone used to doing things on her own, used to being out in the field with her camera, chasing wildlife and landscapes. Being unable to move must have felt strange and frightening to her. Riley pulled out his phone, but the screen stayed stubbornly blank, no signal. "Of course," he muttered under his breath. Lena noticed. "No service?" "Not right here," he admitted, giving her a reassuring smile. "But there's a spot up the ridge where I can reach someone. I'm going to make sure you're stable first. Then I'll ride up and call for help." She gripped the grass beside her. "Don't leave me long." "I won't," he promised. He used his jacket as a cushion under her head and arranged her legs in the safest position he could without moving her hips too much. She winced once, but breathed easier afterward. Riley talked to her the whole time, telling her what he was doing so she never felt confused or afraid. When she was as comfortable as she could be, he stood up. "I'm heading up the ridge. I'll be back fast." Lena nodded bravely. "I trust you." Those words stuck with him as he climbed onto Dusty and rode hard toward higher ground. The morning no longer felt peaceful. It felt urgent. Every second mattered. He didn't know exactly what he would find when he examined her more thoroughly later. But he did know one thing. He had to get her help before things became worse. And he intended to keep his promise. Riley rode fast up the ridge, his heart beating harder than the hooves beneath him. Dusty moved with steady power, as if the horse understood the urgency without needing any explanation. Every second felt heavy. Riley kept thinking of Lena lying alone at the bottom of that slope, trying to stay awake, trying to stay calm. He knew she was scared. Anyone would be. The sun had risen a little higher now, turning the hills warm gold. But Riley had no attention to spare for the beauty of the morning. His mind kept circling the same thought: something was seriously wrong with her hips or pelvis. He had seen similar injuries before, when a ranch hand fell off a horse years ago. The signs were almost identical. The difficulty moving, the legs not lining up right, the inability to bring them together. It wasn't something minor. But he also knew that the sooner she got help, the better her chance of healing fully. He reached the top of the ridge and pulled out his phone again, praying for even a small bar of signal. For a moment, the screen stayed blank. Then, one tiny bar appeared. Riley didn't waste a second. He dialed the emergency number, speaking clearly and quickly when the dispatcher picked up. "A woman is injured on my ranch," Riley said. "She fell near the north slope. She can't move her legs properly. I need a medical team sent fast." The dispatcher asked questions, and Riley answered each one with precision. Location, condition, how far from the road, how stable she was when he left her. By the time he hung up, he felt a small sense of relief. Help was coming, but he still needed to get back to her. She shouldn't be alone. He guided Dusty back down the ridge, taking the descent carefully so the horse wouldn't slip. As he neared the slope where he had left Lena, he called out to her, "Lena, I'm coming." He didn't hear an answer right away, and his chest tightened with worry. He dismounted and hurried toward her. "Lena." This time, a soft reply came. "I'm here." Riley reached her side and knelt down again. Her eyes were half open, looking tired but still responsive. Relief washed over him. "You did great," he said softly. "Help is on the way. They'll meet us on the nearest road. I'm going to get you there." Lena let out a shaky breath. I thought maybe I fell asleep." "You stayed awake. That's what matters," Riley said. "Can I check your legs again? I want to make sure nothing changed." She nodded, trusting him fully now. Riley placed his hands gently near her thighs, not pushing, just assessing the shape and position. He didn't want to cause her pain, and he didn't want to worsen anything. As he traced the line of her hip, he felt something he hadn't felt earlier, a soft shift, subtle but wrong, a piece of bone or joint that wasn't where it should be. He frowned slightly, thinking carefully. "Everything okay?" Lena asked, picking up on his silence. Riley looked into her eyes. "I want to be honest with you. There's more going on than just a simple fall. It feels like something in your pelvis may have moved out of place." Lena swallowed hard. "Is that serious?" "It can be," Riley said, keeping his tone gentle. "But I'm here to keep you steady, and the medical team will know exactly what to do once they get to us. We just need to move you safely." Lena nodded slowly. "I trust you," she whispered again. Riley gave a small, reassuring smile. "Good. I won't let anything happen to you." He looked around, thinking through the situation. The path was too uneven to carry her in his arms without risking more harm. He needed something stable, something that would keep her body supported and still. He stood and whistled softly for Dusty. The horse walked over with calm steps, as reliable as ever. Riley removed the rope and strap he kept on the saddle and quickly tied together a makeshift sled using fallen branches and thick grass stems. It wasn't perfect, but it could hold her weight, and the rope would let him pull the sled behind Dusty slowly. When he returned to Lena, he explained everything before touching her. "I'm going to slide this under you. I'll lift only as much as needed. If something hurts, you tell me immediately." "Okay," she whispered. The process was slow. Riley worked with extreme care, sliding his jacket under her back first. Then he shifted her gently, only inches at a time, onto the sled. She winced a few times, but Riley always paused until she breathed easier again. Throughout it all, he talked to her, keeping her calm with simple words. "You're doing great. Just a little more. Almost there." Finally, she was settled on the sled, supported and stable. "You all right?" he asked. "Yes," she said softly. "Thank you." Riley nodded, securing the sled to Dusty's saddle. Then he took a moment to breathe. Moving her hadn't made anything visibly worse. That was good. But he could see exhaustion on her face, and he knew she was running on pure will. He crouched beside her again. "We're going to take it slow. Dusty will pull you, and I'll walk right next to you. You won't be alone for a single second." Lena blinked back the fear. "I believe you." Riley felt a quiet warmth at those words. He didn't know her. She didn't know him. Yet in moments like these, trust was the only thing that mattered. He touched Dusty's neck gently. "Easy, boy." Slow steps. The horse began walking, and the sled glided along the grass. Riley kept one hand on the sled, watching Lena carefully. She breathed through the small bumps, gripping the sides lightly, but she stayed calm. "You okay?" he asked every few minutes. Still here, she replied each time, trying to smile. As they moved through the pasture, the scenery changed from tall golden grass to rocky patches, and then back to open fields. The wind had picked up a bit, brushing Lena's face and giving her a bit of comfort. At times she closed her eyes, not from pain, but from fatigue. But Riley always spoke to her before she drifted too far. "You're doing amazing," he would say. "We're halfway there." Or, "Stay with me, Lena. We're nearly to the road." He never let her feel alone, not even for a heartbeat. After nearly an hour, the ranch road came into view. It wasn't paved or smooth, just a long stretch of dirt lined with old fence posts. But it was wide enough for an emergency vehicle. Riley felt the tension in his chest ease a little. "We're almost there," he told her. "You've been so strong." Lena opened her eyes and looked at him weakly. "I'm just tired," she said. "I know. But you've done everything right." He guided Dusty to a flat spot near the road and stopped. The two of them waited in the quiet morning air. Lena lay still, breathing slowly. Riley knelt beside her, offering his hand. She took it without hesitation. "I didn't think I'd need saving today," she murmured. Riley gave a small laugh. "No one ever plans for that." She looked up at him, eyes filled with gratitude. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't heard me." "You called for help," he said. "That's what saved you. I was just nearby." Lena looked as if she wanted to say more, but the distant sound of a siren interrupted the moment. Riley's head snapped up. An emergency SUV was coming down the dirt road, dust rising behind its tires. "You hear that?" he said gently. Lena smiled faintly. "Music to my ears." Riley stood and waved his arms, guiding the vehicle toward them. As it approached, he stepped back but stayed close enough to reassure her with his presence. The medics jumped out, grabbed their equipment, and hurried over. One of them knelt where Riley had been a moment before. "Hi there," the medic said kindly. "We're going to take good care of you." Lena nodded, her breathing shaky but steady. Riley stepped back to give the professionals space, but he didn't leave. He stayed where she could see him if she looked over. He wanted her to know he was still there. She wasn't facing this alone. The medics examined her carefully, confirming what Riley had suspected. Her pelvis was injured in a way that needed a hospital. They praised Riley's quick thinking, telling him his careful handling made their job easier and prevented any worsening of the injury. A quiet sense of relief filled him. He hadn't known exactly what he would find when he examined her earlier. He had only known what his instincts told him, but those instincts had guided him well. As the medics loaded Lena into the vehicle, she reached out a hand toward Riley. "Thank you," she whispered. "For everything." Riley took her hand gently. "Get better," he said with a warm smile. "I'll check on you soon." She squeezed his hand lightly before the medics helped her inside. The door closed. The engine started, and the vehicle drove off down the long dirt road. Riley watched until it disappeared behind the hills. Only then did he let out the breath he had been holding. He had done all he could. Now it was up to the doctors. But he knew one thing for certain: he wasn't finished being part of Lena's story. Not yet. Riley stood on the dirt road long after the emergency vehicle had disappeared behind the ridge. The world around him slowly returned to its quiet rhythm, the soft rustling of the grass, the distant lowing of cattle, and the gentle whinny from Dusty. But inside him, nothing felt quiet. His mind kept replaying the moment he found Lena, the fear in her voice, and the trust she had placed in him. He finally climbed onto Dusty again, patting the horse's neck. "You did good today," he murmured. "Really good." Dusty snorted as if he understood. Riley guided the horse back toward the ranch, moving slowly now. There was no rush anymore, but the weight in his chest stayed. It wasn't just concern. It was something deeper. Something that surprised him. He didn't normally get attached to strangers. Ranch life kept him somewhat isolated, and he liked it that way. But Lena, she felt different. Maybe because he had met her at her most vulnerable moment. Maybe because she stayed calm even when she was afraid. Maybe because she looked at him with a trust he hadn't felt in a long time. As he rode, the morning turned into afternoon. He finished the chores he had postponed earlier, feeding the horses, checking the fences, repairing a loose latch on the chicken coop. But he did all of it on autopilot. His thoughts were far away, following that emergency vehicle to the hospital miles from the ranch. When he finally returned to his cabin, he poured himself a cup of water and sat at the small wooden table by the window. The sun was starting to lower in the sky, painting the field behind his cabin in a soft orange glow. Normally, this was his favorite part of the day, the quiet after hard work. But today, he felt restless. He picked up his phone for the 50th time, though he knew he wouldn't have any updates. The medics had told him they would call once they reached the hospital, but he also knew that hospital staff were busy. All he could do was wait, and waiting was something Riley was not good at. Hours passed slowly. He cleaned the saddle. Then he reorganized tools in the shed. Then he walked to check the pasture again, even though he had just done it. Anything to keep his hands busy. But eventually, as the sky turned dark blue and stars appeared one by one, his phone rang. Riley snatched it off the table so fast he nearly dropped it. "Hello?" A calm voice spoke. "Is this Riley? The rancher who helped bring in Miss Lena?" "Yes," he said quickly. "How is she?" "She's stable. The doctors have confirmed she suffered a pelvic injury. But she was brought in at the right time. Your careful handling made a significant difference." Riley closed his eyes in relief. "Thank you. Is she awake?" "She's resting now," the voice said. "She asked us to let you know she is thankful and wants to see you when she's able." Riley felt warmth spread through him. "Tell her I'll come tomorrow morning. We'll pass the message along." When the call ended, Riley set the phone down gently. His shoulders relaxed for the first time since dawn. Lena was safe. She would recover. That night, he didn't sleep much, not because he was worried anymore, but because his mind kept returning to her voice, her courage, her quiet determination. She had handled the pain with dignity. She had trusted him completely. And something about that trust stirred a feeling inside him he hadn't expected. The next morning, Riley saddled Dusty early, though he wouldn't be riding the horse far. He rode to town and then took his truck to the hospital. The drive was long, but it felt shorter than usual because he was so focused on seeing her again. When he reached the hospital entrance, he felt oddly nervous. He adjusted his hat, took a deep breath, and walked in. The nurse at the desk recognized his name and guided him to Lena's room. "Go on in," she said softly. "She'll be glad to see you." Riley stepped inside. Lena was propped up slightly on the bed, her hair neatly brushed back, her eyes bright despite the bruising on her side. When she saw him, her entire face lit up. "You came," she whispered with a smile. "Of course," Riley said, closing the door quietly behind him. "How are you feeling?" "Tired," she admitted. "But the doctor said I'll be fine after some weeks of rest. They said you helped prevent something worse." Riley rubbed the back of his neck, embarrassed. "I did what anyone would have done." Lena shook her head gently. "No, not everyone would have known what to do. And not everyone would have stayed so calm." Riley took a seat beside her bed, unsure how to respond to that. He wasn't used to praise. His whole life was built around quiet responsibility. The kind that didn't need thanking. Her eyes softened. "I remember everything. The way you talked to me. The way you kept me from panicking. I don't know how to thank you." "You already have," Riley said quietly. "You're safe. That's what matters." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The room was peaceful, just the steady hum of machines and the soft rhythm of their breathing. Riley noticed then that Lena had a small notebook on her lap, filled with sketches and notes. He nodded toward it. "Planning to work already?" Lena let out a small laugh. No, just writing down what happened. Sometimes I forget details if I don't capture them early." "You're a photographer, right?" "Yes," she said. "Nature mostly. Landscapes, wild animals, and sometimes stories about people who live close to the land." Riley raised an eyebrow. "Stories, huh?" Her smile widened. "Yes. And I think I might write yours someday." Riley chuckled softly. "Mine's not that interesting." "Oh, I disagree," she said with warmth in her eyes. "A rancher who stays calm during an emergency? A man who builds a sled out of branches and grass to save a stranger? Sounds pretty interesting to me. Riley felt his ears warm slightly. Anyone with enough experience would have done the same. Changes. She tilted her head. Maybe. But I'm grateful it was you. Those words landed softly between them, filling the space with something gentle and real. A nurse entered briefly to check Lena's vitals, then left them alone again. Riley noticed Lena growing tired, her eyelids drooping. You should rest, Riley said softly. Will you come again? She asked. Of course, he said. As much as you want. She relaxed at that answer, her eyes warming. Good. It makes me feel less alone. How? Riley touched the edge of her blanket lightly, not quite a handhold, but close. You're not alone. She smiled softly and closed her eyes. Within seconds, she drifted to sleep. Riley stayed sitting there quietly, watching her breathe. He didn't leave until he was sure she was fully resting. As he walked out of the hospital, he felt something shift inside him. Not fear, not worry, something hopeful, something that surprised him. Over the next days, Riley visited Lena every morning before tending to the ranch, and every evening after finishing his chores. Each time he walked in, Lena greeted him with a smile that made the room feel brighter. They talked about everything: the ranch, her photography journeys, old stories from Riley's childhood, near misses she had experienced while traveling. They laughed often, and sometimes they fell quiet, but even the silence between them felt comfortable. One evening, as Riley was preparing to leave, Lena looked at him with a thoughtful expression. Do you know what I realized? She said softly. What? I wasn't just scared because I was hurt, she said. I was scared because I was alone out there. And when you showed up, it felt like the world stopped trying to swallow me. You made everything feel steady. Riley swallowed, feeling unexpectedly moved. I'm glad I could help, but I think, she continued shyly, that what scares me now is the thought of never seeing you again once I leave this hospital. Riley's breath caught. He hadn't dared hope she felt something too, but hearing her say it made his heart thump hard. You don't have to worry about that, he said quietly. I'm not going anywhere. Lena's eyes glowed with relief and warmth. Good, she whispered. Because I want you in my life. Riley didn't need to think. His answer came out steady and certain. And I want to be there. The two of them shared a quiet, meaningful moment filled not with fear or urgency like the day they met, but with a gentle promise of something new, something beginning. Days passed slowly, but steadily, and Lena's condition continued to improve. The doctors were impressed with her progress, noting that her body had healed remarkably well because of the quick and careful action Riley had taken that morning. Every day, she could sit a little more comfortably, move her legs a little more freely, and regain a sense of independence that she hadn't felt in weeks. Yet even as she gained strength, her mind often wandered back to that morning on the ridge, the fear, the panic, and most of all, the calm and reassuring presence of Riley. Riley, on the other hand, settled back into his routine at the ranch. Chores, animals, fences, and crops. His life returned to its usual rhythm, yet he noticed how empty the days felt when he wasn't visiting the hospital. There was a quiet part of him that realized just how much he cared for Lena. It was strange to feel so connected to someone he had met under such extreme circumstances, but the bond they had formed in that small window of crisis was unlike any he had experienced before. Trust had been given and received in its purest form, and it lingered in both of them like a gentle echo. One crisp morning, Riley saddled Dusty earlier than usual. The sky was painted in soft shades of pink and gold, and the air carried a hint of frost. He had promised Lena that he would check in today, and he intended to keep that promise. As he rode down the familiar trail leading to the hospital, he allowed his mind to wander, not to worries or chores, but to Lena's laugh, her quick smile, and the way her eyes lit up when she talked about her photography. He smiled softly, realizing that he looked forward to these visits as much as she did. When Riley reached the hospital, he found Lena waiting for him. She was sitting up in bed, her hair neatly brushed, a notebook and pencil in her lap. As soon as she saw him, her face brightened. Good morning, she said warmly. Morning, Riley replied, dismounting from his horse. though only in his imagination, since he had driven this time. "How's my favorite patient today?" Lena laughed softly. "I think I'm improving. The doctors say I'm walking a bit more each day. And soon, I might even be able to leave the bed without assistance." Riley smiled at her determination. "That's great. But don't push too fast, all right? Slow and steady wins the race." They talked for a while, laughing softly, sharing stories, and discussing the little things that had nothing to do with injuries or danger. Lena told him about her favorite spots in the countryside, the animals she had photographed, and the little adventures she had gone on in her travels. Riley shared stories of his own childhood on the ranch, the tricks he had learned, the mischiefs he had gotten into, and the lessons only life on the land could teach. They laughed so much that, for a moment, the hospital room felt like a quiet corner of the ranch itself, away from the sounds of machines and busy staff. Days turned into weeks. With each visit, Lena's strength returned, and the trust and bond between them deepened. Riley found himself marveling at her courage and determination. Despite the frightening experience she had faced, she never let fear define her. Instead, she focused on recovery, on learning, on living fully. And Riley couldn't help but admire her even more. One afternoon, the doctor visited Lena's room with good news. "You've made incredible progress," the doctor said with a warm smile. "If everything continues like this, you'll be able to return to the ranch soon, at least for short visits. Full mobility should follow in time. But your body has responded remarkably well." Lena's eyes sparkled. "Thank you, doctor. And thank you, Riley. I wouldn't be here without him." Riley's ears warmed, and he felt that familiar mix of pride and humility. "I just helped," he said softly. "You helped more than you know," the doctor replied. "Your quick thinking and care made all the difference." And in more, that evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in fiery oranges and soft purples, Riley walked into Lena's room one last time before she was scheduled to leave the hospital. She was ready now, fully dressed and leaning on a small walking aid. "I can't believe I'm finally walking out of here," Lena said, her voice filled with a mixture of excitement and disbelief. "You've done all the work," Riley reminded her gently. "I just stayed by your side." They shared a quiet moment, standing close but respecting each other's space. The bond between them was unspoken, yet unmistakable. It was a connection forged in trust, care, and shared experience, something neither could ever forget. "I have a favor to ask," Lena said suddenly, looking up at him. "Will you come with me back to the ranch when I leave? I'd feel more comfortable with someone I know by my side." Riley's heart lifted. "Of course," he said without hesitation. The following morning, the hospital staff helped Lena into a vehicle, and Riley accompanied her back to the ranch. Dusty nickered as he saw Riley, and Lena laughed softly at the sight of the familiar horse waiting for them. Riley helped her down carefully, making sure she was steady. As they walked across the ranch, Lena looked around at the fields, the hills, and the familiar trails. "I never realized how vast and beautiful this place is," she said softly. "It grows on you," Riley replied. "And it teaches you a lot, too." Lena smiled. "I think I've already learned one of the most important lessons here. Trust. And I'm grateful to have learned it from you." Riley felt a warmth in his chest that he couldn't put into words. "I'm glad I could be here for you," he said softly. Over the next weeks, Lena continued her recovery at the ranch, walking slowly but steadily, guided by Riley's patient encouragement. They spent time together every day, sometimes talking, sometimes laughing, sometimes just sitting in silence and enjoying the calm of the fields. Lena even began taking photographs again, capturing the beauty of the ranch, the animals, and the quiet moments that made life special. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Riley and Lena sat on a small hill overlooking the pasture. Dusty grazed nearby, and the sky was painted in gold and pink. "I never imagined that one morning could change so much," Lena said softly. Riley nodded. "Life has a way of surprising us." Riley nodded. "But I'm glad it did." she continued, looking at him with a gentle smile. Because I met someone I trust. Someone who showed me kindness when I needed it most. Riley reached out and gently took her hand. And I'm glad I met you, he said. They sat in silence for a moment, watching the sun sink behind the hills. The bond between them was quiet, steady, and unbreakable. It was built on trust, courage, and care, a connection that had started with a moment of fear and had grown into something far stronger. Days turned into weeks, and Lena's strength fully returned. She walked freely now, explored the ranch, and even helped with small chores. Riley marveled at her resilience and courage, and she admired his patience, knowledge, and calm strength. They laughed together, shared stories, and created memories that would last a lifetime. And in the quiet evenings, when the sky glowed with colors too beautiful for words, they would sit together, side by side, knowing that life could be both unpredictable and wonderful. They had faced uncertainty and fear, but through it all, they had found trust, connection, and something far more lasting: friendship, respect, and a bond that neither of them would ever forget. The ranch was as peaceful as ever, but now it was filled with a sense of joy and companionship. Riley and Lena had learned that life could change in a single moment, yet those moments could lead to something beautiful, something worth remembering forever. And so, the story of that morning, the fall, the fear, the trust, and the rescue became a story not just of survival, but of courage, kindness, and the quiet beginnings of a deep and meaningful friendship. Lena never forgot the calm hands and steady heart of Riley, and Riley never forgot the courage and trust of Lena. Together, they had turned a frightening day into a story of hope, recovery, and the enduring power of human connection. The ranch remained their sanctuary, the place where they learned to care for one another, to trust, and to live fully. And every time the sun rose over the hills, it reminded them of that first morning of fear, courage, and the unbreakable bond that had formed between a rancher and a visitor who had once felt helpless, but now felt truly at home.